This is Soul Red Crystal Metallic, which means we're driving a Mazda, and today that Mazda happens to be the all-new CX-70 plug-in hybrid. We're here in Palm Springs to see what's different about this from the CX-90, which on the outside, admittedly, not much, but inside there are a few changes that you might be interested in, so stay tuned as we take it for a drive, look through the interior, and ultimately give it a verdict. Let's go. An ongoing trend you'll notice with this review is that the CX-70 is very similar to the CX-90. That means the powertrains are also the same. Powering the CX-70 PHEV is a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated four-cylinder mated to an electric motor powered by a 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack. Combined, it's good for 26 miles of all-electric range, 323 horsepower, and 369 pound-feet of torque. The CX-70 PHEV starts with premium trim with a MSRP of $54,400. For those keeping score at home, that's the exact same price as the CX-90 Premium, though the CX-90 has a less expensive preferred trim for those that might be interested. There's a new melting copper metallic paint also available exclusively on the CX-70 for $450, but real true Mazda OGs will want Soul Red Crystal Metallic at $595. As I alluded to in the intro, there isn't much difference between the CX-70 and the CX-90. Outside visually, the CX-70 and CX-90 are nearly identical. That's because they're on the same large car platform and they're the same length. So the Soul Red Crystal Metallic here is accented by a lot of black trim. This blackout trim, which is standard on the 70, and it's how you can tell that you're looking at a CX-70. Otherwise, I think it's a fairly attractive vehicle. In terms of PHEV badging on this, inline six, if it's just the non-hybrid. And overall, I think it's an attractive looking vehicle. Coming down the other side here, let's just take a look real quick at where the charging door is located. And the nice little pull out here. Overnight charging, level 1, level 2, a couple hours. Easy peasy. Here in the back is where all of the magic happens because, as I said earlier, there is no third row. It is just a two row, but because the vehicle is the same length and the same design as the CX-90, you end up with the same amount of cargo space. However, this time it's just always kind of fold flat. Now, Mazda's done a few clever things. Below the floor here is some storage sort of options for the charger and things like that. But you can also fold it up, and there's another bin up here, plus there's a bin right behind the seat. So these extra bins are not there on the third row CX-90. And then you still get underneath all of this a spare tire. Look at that. You can power fold the second row from the back row here from the back. There's a 1500-watt inverter on board, which you could use to make coffee, which would be pretty nice, as well as a standard plug and some USB charging. So, some interesting things, other things to note. There are still third row cup holders. I'm sure that's just a cost saving method because this is the three row. The second row forward is identical to the CX-90, which means you get some pretty comfortable second row seats. Real easy to get to ISOFIX anchor points, though I wish the cap would stay connected and not just pop off like it just did. And this version does have three-row climate control, which is nice. Heated outboard rear seats, some USB powers for the people in the back. Overall, this would be a very nice place to do a long journey. There's some peasant blockers to keep the sun out, and a beautiful multi-pane moon roof to keep everything nice and bright and airy inside. Up front, there's a full digital instrument cluster, which is great, and it changes depending on what drive mode you're in, which is also cool. It's a little slow to respond, but the responsiveness itself isn't bad. It's just a little bit from the button press to the instrument cluster change. There's also Mazda's infotainment system, which is controlled through a jog wheel down here. It would be nice if you could reach up and touch it, but it doesn't seem like you can do that. But it does, like I said, it supports wireless CarPlay, Android Auto, so all of that's pretty nice. And the interior, again, is pretty standard fare from the CX-90. If you've been in the CX-90, this looks very, very, very familiar to you. But what I do like is all of the materials are nice and soft touch, even down by your knee. I'll be the first to admit that I wasn't a big fan of the CX-90. I mean, I don't have a need. I don't have a real need for a three-row crossover in my life, but there are a lot of good three-row crossovers out there, such as the Grand Highlander, which if you click up here-ish, one of these sides, I'll get it right someday, to watch Craig's full review of that, a car that he liked quite a bit now, I also do like. But the advantage of the CX-90 was you can get it in a plug-in hybrid. There aren't a lot of three-row plug-in hybrids out there, and the one and one that really I'm surprised isn't out there yet is the Jeep Grand Cherokee L with the plug-in hybrid. So this does offer sort of a unique offering in that space. The problem that I noticed, the problem that I had was there were some things that just weren't tweaked properly. Like it feels like there was still some polish that was needed. It wasn't a bad car, and I wouldn't fault anybody having bought one, especially if they're a Mazda fan. But there were a few things that I think that the team at Mazda could have worked on, and they have. And then a guy on site told me these are some of the changes that they've made, and I'll kind of walk through those what I've noticed in with the new one. So the first thing, customer feedback was, the steering's too heavy. There's not really a lot of feel in a modern day power steering system, even with Mazdas, but they really weighted up that steering sort of input needed to make turns, and in a three-row crossover, it just doesn't need to be that much, especially in normal mode. So they lightened it up some here. I'd like to see it a little bit lighter, actually. If I were being completely honest, at least in normal mode. In sport mode, yeah, make it a little heavier if you want. I totally get that. But um, that was definitely one sort of thing. That was definitely one thing that I think a lot of people complained about. Another one was sort of transmission responsiveness at lower speeds. They've told me they've fixed the 1-2-3 shifting sort of complexities, and what I'll say, in about 90 to 90% of my driving, the transmission and powertrain work exactly the way that I expect it to. Put my foot down, it downshifts, it goes. Uh, which is significantly better than the CX-90 that I had, which felt like it could never really figure out, oh, what gear should I be in at low speed? Do I need to run the gas engine? Can I do this all on electric? Like it was missing some of that final polish, and they have definitely tweaked that here through, I've told, nearly entirely software. So actually all software. So a couple advantages to that is, one, the system is just better. It's easy. It works better for CX-70 owners, but CX-90 owners will be able to, over time, through dealer updates and stuff like that, be able to take advantage of these software updates, which Mazda has said that they plan on hopefully offering once everything gets worked out. So, which is good. There are a few times where I can still kind of flow mix the system in normal mode. There was one time where a light turned yellow. I wanted to give it a little bit of acceleration, not a ton, but a little bit, and it really felt like the CX-70 could have negotiated Middle East peace in the time that it took for it to pick whatever gear it wanted to be in, because it wanted to go down one, then it wanted to go down two, and then I was like, oh, well, should I fire the gas engine? And it just really, the calibration, like, it really kind of didn't work. So it's not often that it does. It did it way more in the CX-90 that I had recently. So it's definitely an improvement, but possibly could use a little bit extra polish. What's interesting is they're using a normal geared transmission in here, which is what the Koreans do on their plug-in hybrids, and sometimes that can feel a little wonky and respond a little wonky, especially um, when you're in all-electric mode. Because normally, if you're driving in all-electric mode in a lot of PHEVs, it's a CVT, so you don't ever feel like a gear shift. Or you're in a full electric, which doesn't have gears at all, and then it's super smooth. So getting the calibration right on a gear shift in all electric mode is difficult. The Koreans have had a few generations to now to kind of figure it out, and I think they have. A little bit more work on the Mazda end. I think would really polish that out. Um, but I don't have any really other complaints. The system, I mean, some of those may seem like big deals. Like I said, I wouldn't notice that sort of responsiveness issues with something like a Grand Highlander, but that doesn't necessarily matter because the Grand Highlander doesn't come in a PHEV. Lexus TX does, and I guess maybe you could argue that this is a TX competitor. And but the long and the short of it is this car drives, at least powertrain wise and steering, drives much nicer than the CX-90 in my opinion. And everything that was kind of good about the CX-90 is actually a little bit better here. It seems a little quieter. Doesn't seem to be as much wind noise, and we are in Palm Springs, and it is super windy. I'm about to drive through a dust storm, and at highway speeds, you don't really hear a lot of wind noise. A little bit from the wing mirrors, but again, nothing that I would consider egregious. Road noise is kept to a minimum. Again, the pavement's pretty nice out here, so back in Ohio or Michigan, it may be a little different. But on the highway, it's a pretty kind of serene place to be. So let's talk about just driving in general. Like I said, I like the driving dynamics a lot better, sort of in this one over the CX-90 because of those improvements to the powertrain. Visibility, I can see well out of most areas. There's no real blind spot. The rear window is nice and big, just like on the CX-90. It does seem like it's way, way back there, though. I almost would like to see them offer a factory digital rear view mirror option. I guess a dealer can install one, but having it come from the factory, I think, would be it's a better sort of system. The level 2 ADAS driver assist functionality that this car has works really well when it can find the lines. The one thing is it's really hard to find the lines on the on the 10 here in Palm Springs because basically the roads have all been sandblasted from the dust storms. So it has a little bit of trouble here, but on a normal road, a normal place, it doesn't. And the lane centering works really well. It keeps you right in. It keeps you right in the center of the lane. It doesn't deviate much. Like it's really doing the work for. I mean, it's not doing the work for you, but it's kind of doing the work for you. And it's also very easy to turn off, which in a Mazda, like you want to be able to do that. I know that organizations like the IHS are just like, no, you shouldn't be able to turn this off. You shouldn't be able to turn this off. But for a car that is supposed to be a driver-centric vehicle first, I believe it's extremely important to be able to turn those assistance features off in order to sort of be able to drive and pay attention. But ultimately, I think the government's going to win that battle long term. Instrument cluster super easy to read. It changes through drive modes, which is cool. The infotainment system itself, you either like it or you don't. I think that after you work with it for a little bit, it's easy enough to pick up on. You have to use this sort of jog dial here down in the console, and I don't know. Some people don't like it. I don't hate it. I think there's more intuitive systems out there, but again, I think once you spend a little bit of time with it, you're fine. And then that's what an owner will do. They're not in a new car every week the way that we are. Wireless CarPlay. It also supports Android Auto. And one thing I will also say too, I tend to not like Bose stereos. I think they're a lot of branding and not a lot of substance. But the way Mazda tunes its Bose center point stuff is really good. It sounds good, and you turn the center point off. Don't run the center point on, but set the equalizer flat like a normal human being should, and let the audio engineers that designed it, pick how to play it, and turn the center point off, and it sounds really good with all genres of music. And it's something you don't necessarily pay extra for or pay a lot extra for, but it really, I think, is a value. It definitely adds to the value of the vehicle and the experience of driving. All of the materials are nice. Everything is soft touch. It's soft touch here. It's soft here. It's soft here. It's soft down my knee. It's soft in my head. Like, it's everywhere. It's all just pleasant. The seats are comfortable. They're memory. They're heated. They're cooled. There's tri-zone climate control in here. Like, it's really nice. It should shock nobody that this car drives like a CX-90 because it's a CX-90. Obviously, the improvements that I've talked about, but it's a CX-90. It's the same length as a CX-90. It weighs the same as a CX-90. Now, they'll say it's up to 150 pounds depending on trim, but nobody can tell the difference. And even the well-tuned butt dynos at insert random buff book here will say, oh, well, it's what? No, they can't tell. They just can't. So it's basically the same weight, and it's better. The CX-70 is a nicer to drive CX-90, but fortunately, these updates that have happened to the CX-70 are all software, so it's something that can be rolled out to the CX-90. And while they don't have any firm plans at this point, like it was really heavily implied that could happen. So I hope it does. Let's talk a little bit about the PHEViness before we wrap it up. It's about 24 miles of range. You can charge it overnight on a level 1 or a level 2. In EV only mode, it will only run on EV. You can put your foot all the way to the floor and it will not kick on the gas engine. It's pretty sprightly in that mode. It's still hard to hide the weight of something this big, so it's definitely not like an EV9 kicking the pants, but it's not bad. And the range itself is a little bit lower than I'd like to see on the PHEV side of things. But if you do have the ability to charge maybe at home and at work, like, oh, then you'll never put gas in it. I was talking to one of the Mazda folks who hangs out sort of in the forums and stuff on Facebook with the CX-90 owners of the PHEVs, and there's a guy that got something like 45 miles out of this. So if you really want to gamify it, you can. But the point of the PHEV is to be able to handle your sort of around the town short range duties without using any electricity, but giving you the confidence to drive all the way across the country and not having to worry about where to charge. Ultimately, thanks to the software improvements to the powertrain, this CX-70 is much nicer to drive than the CX-90, but hopefully Mazda will be able to carry those improvements over to its three-row brother here in the near future. Now, who's going to buy a three-row crossover that doesn't have a third row? Mazda claims there's people out there for it. We'll have to follow sales numbers to know for sure. It is nice to have the extra space, but remember, in the CX-90, you can just fold the third row down. Does the clever storage of the CX-70 make up for it? That's going to be for you to decide. Are you looking for a three-row crossover but want the full battery electric experience? Check out the absolutely fantastic Kia EV9 by clicking the video link right over here.